So in today's video, I want to show you two things. So I want to show you my process on the iPad Pro, so how I sketch on it and how I paint on it. And I also want to show you how to draw ears and how to paint them. What I have planned for the future is I want to do like these separate videos on different topics. So I want to show you like how to draw lips, how to draw ears, eyes, hair, all that kind of stuff. And I want to break it down into separate videos instead of doing like one big video. So I think having separate videos makes it easier for you to actually learn something from them. So as I said, today I want to show you or talk about drawing ears. I think many of you have problems drawing them, and they're actually super simple. You just need to remember 5 parts, and that's it. If you're able to memorize 5 rules, anatomical rules that apply to the ear, you will probably never have problems drawing them again. Let's just jump right into it, and I'll kind of do a quick demo, and hopefully by the end of this video you will know how to draw ears. So here we go. As you can see on the screen, I have drawn a few ears here already. So these are just quick sketches. Some of them are a little bit more refined and others are still very loose and rough. I'm going to use this ear specifically to kind of show you the different parts of the ear that you need to remember as an artist. So I'm going to outline the 5 parts on top of this ear and kind of just to visualize them for you so you can memorize them more easily. So let me actually pick a pencil here and I'll show you the different parts. So the first part of the ear that you need to memorize, and this is really important, is this right here. So this is part 1, or the first part that you need to memorize when drawing ears, and this one is called the helix. And you don't need to memorize the names of them, you only need to remember the shape of it. And another thing to remember is that, let's say you're studying ears and you have a reference in front of you, don't really focus too much on that specific shape of the ear, because there are like a million different shapes of ears out there. Only focus and only try to remember or study the anatomical parts of it. So look at the anatomy, but don't spend too much time on that individual ear, because there are so many different ear shapes out there. So anyway, so this is the first part. The second part of the ear is the antihelix, which is this part in here. It's kind of like a Y shape. So this is something you want to memorize. The next part is called the tragus, which is this part right here. Maybe I should pick a different color for it. So this right here is the tragus. Then we have the antitragus, which is this in here. And we have the earlobe, which is, let me just look for a nice color. The earlobe right here. So you basically got 5 different parts. Let me just write this down. We got the lobe. We got the antitragus. We got the tragus. And we got the antihelix. So these are the 5 parts you need to memorize. And if you look at any other ear, they will all have these 5 parts. They just differ in shape and size, but the anatomy will stay the same. So that's very important to remember. So no matter what you're studying anatomically, even if it's like feet, hands, it doesn't matter. They will differ in shape and size, but the anatomy will stay the same most likely. So I'm just going to do a quick few scribbles here, just so you can see what I mean. If you have the time, then I would say sketch along and try to, as I said, memorize these shapes. It's only 5 shapes, so it's not very complex to learn them. And the more you draw them, so if let's say you're doing like 50 ears, then they should be pretty easy to remember, I would say. And also when you're studying anatomy, your sketches don't have to be the prettiest. We're not trying to create pretty illustrations when we're studying anatomy. We're only trying to learn the anatomical aspect of our subject. And so you can see I started with the helix, and now I'm drawing the antihelix, the inner part. And the lobe. And we can add a nice little shadow here. So that's all it takes. And you can refine it later on, make it look nice and pretty, but for now we're only interested in the anatomy. So we're only looking at the purest shapes and not any characteristics that are like specific to that one ear. I have a bunch of references open on my computer right now, so I would advise you to do the same. So go on Pinterest or Google Images and then try to study whatever pops up. So any kind of ear, try to study that and just do a bunch of quick sketches. And as I said, they don't have to be pretty at all. You only want to absorb as much information about anatomy as possible. And so that's exactly what I'm doing here. And try to draw ears from different angles, from different sides, different ages, different ethnicities. So here's the next ear. You can see that if I just highlight it real quick, you can see that we have all of the different anatomical features. We have the helix, we have the antihelix in the middle, we have the tragus, we have the antitragus, and we have the lobe. Same goes for this ear. We have the helix, antihelix, antitragus, tragus, earlobe. So every ear is made out of these 5 different components. And so all you really need to do is just memorize these different shapes and you're good to go. And so that's why I said draw as many ears as possible. And I know it can be boring at times, but the more you do these type of studies and sketches, the easier it'll become to draw ears from imagination. And so just in case you're wondering, I'm using a brush called Critical out of my pencil set for Procreate. And then once you feel comfortable with the anatomical components of an ear, that's when you can maybe perhaps go in there and try to draw them out of your imagination. So what I can do right now is I can just try to draw ears purely out of imagination and see how much I've learned from my studies alone. And you'll soon realize that it's not even that difficult. And you can apply this method of studying to anything. So let's say you're trying to study how to draw feet, then you can do exactly the same. Try to break down feet in the simplest shapes possible, and then just do like maybe 50 to 100 different sketches of feet. And as I said, don't try to make pretty drawings. You don't want to spend a lot of time on these drawings. You just want to absorb as much information as possible. And you should be good to go. And you can really see how easy it is for me. And I don't even have to think a lot about them because I've drawn so many ears that it kind of feels natural to me to draw them. And so just fill a complete page with different ears. Maybe fill like 2 to 3 pages in your sketchbook. And that's what I'm doing here. And so this is going to be the last ear that I'm sketching, and then maybe I'll do a quick demo of how I would do a color study of one of these ears. but I just wanted to mainly demonstrate that when you're studying anatomy, you should really focus on the universal shapes that apply to any one of us instead of the things that only apply to one single person on Earth. They all have different shapes. One of them is larger, one of them is longer, thicker, but the anatomy stays the same. That's the important part. No matter which ear we look at, we have these 5 parts. We have the helix, we have the antihelix, we have the tragus, the antitragus, and we have the earlobe. And so no matter how old the person is, where they come from, what gender they are, they will have these anatomical shapes. So study these simplistic shapes, and I guess you'll never have problems drawing ears again. It's that simple. So anyway, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a quick color study of one of these ears just to kind of show you how it would do that. What I would do first, and let me actually select one of these ears and drop it onto a new layer. So I want this one, and I'm going to go here, copy and paste, and we're going to hide the layer below. And so what I'm going to do now first is I want to change the color of this sketch. So I want to change it to a reddish tone instead of this gray tone. That makes it a little bit easier for when we're painting, especially when you're painting skin. You want your sketch to be in a similar tone or hue as the skin color. So what we're going to do is, with the layer selected where our sketch is on, we're going to click on this little icon up here, and we're going to click on color balance. And the top slider, we're going to slide it to the right, and then we're going to click on midtones and do the same, and click on highlights and repeat the process. And now our sketch is red. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to click this little N and click on multiply. We're going to create a new layer and drag it below our sketch. And this is where we're going to paint on. So let me just select a painting brush. So I'm switching over to my painting bundle and select hotline. And by the way, if you want to use any of my brushes, you can click the link in the description and it'll take you to my Gumroad shop where you can purchase these bundles. Currently, I have the paint brushes and the pencils uploaded to my store, but soon I'll also release hair brushes and some blenders for Procreate specifically. So anyways, I'm going to select hotline for this, and then I'm going to choose a skin color that I think will suit this sketch. So when picking a skin color, it's important that you pick something that is comfortable to look at and something that isn't too bright and not too dark. And it also shouldn't be too saturated or too desaturated. So pick something in the middle. So I'm probably going to go with something like this. And then I'm just going to fill in my sketch with this color. And since we're painting below our sketch, we're actually not affecting the sketch, and it'll just sit on top. So the next thing we want to do is we want to create a new layer, and we want to start shading. And so what you do is you select your skin color, and then you want to make it a little bit darker and shift the hue to a little bit more of a reddish tone. And then you're just going to test it out if it looks all right. That looks pretty good. And now we're just going to start shading. And so when you're shading ears, it's important that you study references and see how ears are lit and how they react to lighting, because you have many different factors that will change the color of the lighting or of the skin depending on the lighting situation. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to apply a very basic layer of shading, and then we're going to refine it as we go along. So don't be afraid to experiment and try to come up with something that you like. Next up, we want to select a little bit of a darker color and add a few darker shadows. And so basically a shadow is an area where light doesn't get to. So let's say our lighting is coming from up here. Light wouldn't get into this area right here. and light wouldn't get here, for example. Light would have a hard time getting here, and it would have a hard time getting here. So anyways, moving on, I'm gonna add some lighting now to the ear. And so basically right now we have a very detailed ear, I would say. And it only takes a few more steps to make it pop a little bit more. So the way you can make something stand out and look three-dimensional is by creating contrast. And the way you create contrast and sharpness is by having a variety of hard and soft edges and also light and dark colors. I'm first gonna make a few of these shadows a little bit darker. And then a dark shadow underneath it, right here. And maybe even a hint of hair. So now we want to create a new layer that's on top of our sketch, and this is where we'll finalize the painting. The first thing we want to do is we want to merge all of these things together. So the way I do this, the quickest way, is by clicking on the tool icon up here, then clicking on copy canvas and then paste. And this is just going to create a copy of everything we've drawn on the canvas, and it kind of merges it all into one layer and then places it on top. And so with this layer selected, we can start finalizing our painting. And so what we want to do is we want to select a blending tool. So I have a bunch of different blenders here, as you can see. So let's pick something simple like the whirlpool. And we're just going to blend in areas that we think need softening. So I'm just going to make some areas a little bit smoother. And be careful not to make it too soft. A lot of times when something is too soft, and I see this many times with beginner painters, their painting starts to look a little bit mushy or airbrushy. It doesn't look very realistic anymore. So you want to be careful with the softness. You don't want to go overboard. And this will take a little bit of practice, but the more you do it, the easier it'll get. So this should be something that is relaxing to you, not something that you stress out about. And so maybe introduce a few different colors. Since we're keeping this pretty loose, one more thing to make it even stand out a little bit more, to make it pop a little bit more, is to add highlights to it. So very bright lights. And so what we want to do is we want to go back to our pencils and select the digital pencil, and then select a bright color, a very bright color, and then just highlight a few of the areas that appear to be very bright in our reference. So most of the time what is really bright is the antihelix, the curve of it, and the antitragus. Those are the two parts that I found to be super bright most of the time. And this is actually very close to finished. And if you look at any of my pieces online, you will see that I usually don't take them very far. It's just the illusion of it that makes it look realistic. But if you look closer, you'll see that many of my pieces are actually kept very loose and rough, like really to a minimum And so that's how I would sketch or draw a ear. So I just want to quickly outline the different anatomical parts again, just so that it's easy for you to remember them. So we have the helix. This is the largest part. And this is the part that goes around the ear. Right here. Then we have the second part is the antihelix. It's the part in here, and you can memorize this because it has this Y shape. Next up, we have the tragus, which is this little nib. Then of course, we'll have the antitragus over here. And last but not least is the earlobe, which is this part right here. No matter which person you're drawing, no matter their age, no matter where they come from, they'll all have these anatomical components. And so all you need to do is remember these, and it'll be super easy to draw ears from now on. The best thing you can do is fill up 1, 2, 3 pages in your sketchbook, and that's really all it takes. I hope this video wasn't too bad. It's actually the first one where I'm filming myself, or where I have this camera on top and I'm drawing on the iPad. So let me know in the comments what you thought of this video, if you found it useful or not. Give it a like if you like this video, and make sure to smash that subscribe button if you ain't subscribed to my channel yet. That would be super awesome. And as always, guys, thanks for watching the video. I love you with all my heart and soul. Peace.